Welcome to the strange and disturbing world of terror at Collinwood. 'Tis I, Penny Dreadful, and I am delighted to bring you my guest today, Joseph Lidster, producer, writer extraordinaire at Big Finish, and he's going to be talking to us about his work on Dark Shadows and his fandom for Dark Shadows. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to get to it. But before we get to the show, I want to let you know about a couple of exciting things coming up. Catherine Lee Scott has announced on her social media accounts that the Dark Shadows 60th anniversary event will be happening in Los Angeles from Friday, July 31st to Sunday, August 2nd. So definitely mark those dates on your calendars. More information about hotel and programming will be coming soon, so stay tuned. I'll be sure to announce anything I hear right here on Terror at Collinwood. Also, I want to share something fun with you. George Kalogridis sent me a playlist to his YouTube channel, and he did some remarkable AI animations using my friend Eric Marshall's Hanna-Barbera style Dark Shadows cartoon designs. These are crazy. I love these. If you head over to YouTube and check out the video version of the podcast, you can see these. They're really groovy. They're really cool. Check them out, these animations. I'll also put a link to George's YouTube channel in the show notes. He's done some great AI stuff using existing Dark Shadows images and artwork. It's super fun. I may be using some of George's animations of Eric's cartoon artwork in future video episodes of the podcast as like transitional elements in between segments and things like that. Thank you very much for sending these along, George. Last but certainly not least, I want to give a Collinwood-sized thank you to the amazing and extremely thoughtful John Logan for once again offering a very generous donation to the podcast. Thank you, John. You've heard acclaimed screenwriter and playwright John Logan in past episodes of the podcast, and I have some fun plans for a couple of future episodes, including one about the epic Dark Shadows legacy book that John is working on with Catherine Lee Scott and Ansel Farage with assist in materials from Jim Pearson. I know about some of what's going to be in there, and I've gotten a couple of peeks, and I can tell you this is going to be one book that every Dark Shadows fan will 100% need on their bookshelf. Now, you can also help the podcast out if you feel so inclined by dropping a donation off Widow's Hill and right into the Terror at Collinwood Buy Me a Coffee page. As always, it's linked in the show notes, and any amount you care to donate is very much appreciated. In addition, you can show your support for Terror at Collinwood by picking up a Terror at Collinwood or Penny Dreadful's Shilling Shockers t-shirt over at the Penny Dreadful the 13th TeePublic shop. You can also get other goodies there like magnets, stickers, mugs, badges, and other fun things that make for great stocking stuffers. Now, if you scroll to the bottom of the page for each item, you can click on things like accessories, home goods, featured, or any of the other links to see more items with the designs on them. And keep an eye out for frequent sales at TeePublic where you can get discounts on items. And I hope to see some of you sporting your Terror at Collinwood t-shirts at the Dark Shadows 60th anniversary event in Los Angeles. And of course, the link to the TeePublic shop is in the show notes. Now, without further ado, let's get to the show. Be careful, my friend, where you tread, for I warn you now, there are spoilers ahead. Welcome to Terror at Collinwood. 'Tis I, Penny Dreadful, and I am delighted today to be joined by Joseph Lidster. I am thrilled indeed to be joined by this writer and producer who is known for navigating the dark and mysterious corners of cult television and audio drama, while many know his name from the Whoniverse, having written for Doctor Who on audio with Big Finish and scripting episodes for television spin-offs like Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures. It's his work on Dark Shadows that we're digging into today. Since 2011, Joe has been co co-producing Big Finish Productions' range of Dark Shadows audio dramas, helping to continue the terrifying, complex legacy of the Collins family and the world of Collinsport. His work has involved writing, such as the audio dramas London's Burning, The Crimson Pearl, The Fall of the House of Trask, Snowflake, and the full cast serial Bloodlust, and also producing The Range, which has explored the show's rich mythology. Welcome to the show, Joe. It is a delight and a pleasure to have you here.
It's so nice to be here. Thank you. Thank you
Oh
for
my
having me.
goodness. I've
Exciting.
you have definitely been for quite a few years now. I was like, I've got to reach out to Joe and get
Yeah.
him onto the podcast. You've been on the horizon. I was like, I got to reach out to Joe, and several people also have reached out to me and said, "Oh, are you going to have Joe Lidster on the podcast to talk about Big Finish?" I said, I'm going to ask him. So
One
thank you
day.
for
Yeah.
taking the time.
Oh, thank you for having me. Exciting.
Joe, how are things going for you there in the UK? How are things today in London?
They're all right, but they've just put the clocks back, so it now gets dark ridiculously early. So it's 4:10 in the afternoon here, and it's already starting to get dark, which is a bit miserable. And also means this morning woke up and it was bright sunshine, and it's
Yeah.
very confusing for a couple of days. But yeah, no, it's all good.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm doing this, then I'm going to cut my tea, and then I'm heading out to play board games. So I'm having a good old geeky day.
Oh, geeky.
Podcast
Hey,
interview about Dark Shadows, and I'm going to go and play geeky board games as well. So getting my geek on today.
those are the best kind of days to have for sure.
Totally.
So, speaking of Dark Shadows, now I've had Stuart, of course,
Yeah,
on the podcast. Our mutual friend Stuart Manning. He's been on the podcast several times, and you guys have known each other for a while, right? He was kind of your gateway into this because he was like your
yeah,
predecessor, right, in producing the Big Finish audios. So, can you talk a little bit about how you got into the Big Finish Dark
yeah.
Shadows world?
I mean, it's funny because what's behind you now, I don't know if you can see it. Obviously, it's an audio podcast, but all the Dark Shadows behind you now, that's one set of our shelves in our living room,
Mm.
all because of Stuart Manning.
Oh,
Because
wonderful.
I'd never heard of Dark Shadows, and
Oh,
now
okay. Yeah.
it absorbed me. But
There is a
basically,
video version of this, by the way.
oh, right, well, hello.
Okay. Yeah. There's
Talking about
audio and video. Yeah.
I think it's fine. All our that sort of stuff goes in the living room because my boyfriend's into it as well. He's written for the range.
Uh,
So we have a big set of shelves on one side of the wall that has all of the CDs, obviously. That we've got
mhm.
the coffin box set, and we've got all the yellow paperback, what
Oh,
do you call
yes.
books? Yeah, we've got all of those, and any comics and anything else we've got all on. So we've got a lovely display. So anybody comes into our flat, they're always like, "What's this?" And you're like, "Well, let us lead you into this dark world." Which is kind of what happened to Stuart. So basically, I was working a lot for Big Finish on other ranges that he did, Doctor Who and so on. And me and Ian Farrington, who also works Big Finish, moved in together. We got a flat together.
Mhm.
Uh, because we were both sort of a similar age, doing a lot of stuff for Big Finish. He's a bit younger than me, but both doing a lot of stuff for Big Finish, and we just got on really well. And we would spend our evenings just watching 24 because me and Ian were obsessed with 24. And then we got Stuart moved in with us. And then I knew him fairly well at that point. But I think, if I remember rightly, because this is, obviously this is 15 years ago, whenever it was, he must have had a really small room. I think we were only meant to be a two-bedroom flat, and then when he moved in, he kind of went into a sort of cupboard or something. And so he used to work in the living room a lot, and he was doing. I remember him doing the covers for. I think it was for the original when he was doing the Angelique's Descent.
Mhm.
The original two sort of talking books of Lara reading the books, and I was just blown away by Stuart's skill as an artist. I think those covers are, to this day, some of the best things. So not even just a Big Finish, just generally. I think his skill as an artist is astonishing, and especially as you then get involved in Dark Shadows and realise there's no publicity photos from Dark Shadows. Stuart is working with terrible quality photos and managing to find one of Nancy Barrett that hasn't been used before, which then we ended up having the situation with on covers. So watching him, and one night, I think we'd been out, the three of us, and I sort of said to him, "Look, what is this Dark Shadows? I've heard you talk about it and all this stuff. And I said, let's watch the first episode. And this, please don't hate me. I'd had a few drinks and watched the first episode. I just went, this is really boring.
The
This is
Victoria Winter's arrival at
and
Collinwood.
it's not. I've got since gone back and watched it. I think that first episode is an astonishing piece of television, but I just didn't get it that first time. And then I think I listened to House of Despair when that came out, and again I was a bit like, oh, everybody's just quite nice and da, 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 da. And then I think it was there was an audio drama. I think it was either Curse of the Pharaoh or Final Judgment, and it was one where it was either Nancy and Marie or Catherine and Lara. Either way, there's no losers there. I mean, that's just the two amazing combinations. And whichever one it was, I just remember sitting on the train listening to it and going, oh, this is really fun. And I think it just took me, it was to get to that stage. And so I said to Stuart, look, I'm sure the early Dark Shadows is great. We'll go back and watch it at some point, which obviously I've now seen it 3 or 4 times. I love it. So I love that pre-Barnabas stuff. It's so beautifully shot. And I said to him, is there an episode that we can try it again? And he went, well, there's 1897. He said, basically, all you need to know is the house has been haunted. The vampire Barnabas. Does Julia go back with Barnabas, or is she later going back? I can't remember.
Oh, in 1890. She goes later. She goes later.
She joins him later, doesn't she?
Yeah.
So all you need to know is the vampire goes back, immediately gets locked up, and it's all these new characters doing this new stuff. So we watched that first episode of 1897, and that was it. I was hooked. We watched it every night. 24 got put back in the cupboard. I think we got Ian into it as well a little bit, but me and Stuart would just sit and I'd be like, can we do one more? Can we do one more? Open another bottle of wine. Can we do one more? Can we do one more? Obsessed with it. I just found it so brilliant. And of course, what it meant for me was I then had the bizarre bit where it suddenly went back to the 1960s. And I was like, who are these people? It was all down to Stuart, but I fell in love with it. Because it's so not something that had ever been in my life. I'd never heard of it. I think Stuart watched it on, is it the Sci-Fi Channel or something?
Yes.
80s, 90s. He's younger than me. 90s. We never had satellite telly or anything like that, so I never saw anything like that. So I'd literally never heard of it until Stuart was doing it at Big Finish. And then it was just 1897, and I was just hooked.
And that's what I always tell people when they ask me, well, where should I start with Dark Shadows? And I know 1897, that will get them hooked. Episode 700.
You don't need to know anything. All you need to know is that Barnabas, there's a character Barnabas who instantly, if I remember rightly, gets locked up and doesn't feature in it for ages. So Jonathan's having a holiday or something. All you need to know is he's gone back to find out who this Quentin is, and everybody is a new character. And it's glorious.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. It's very colorful. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on with werewolves and Count Patofi and all kinds of madness.
Just you think it can't get any better, and then Count Patofi turns up. And you're like, what is this series? This is amazing.
Right.
I think that's why I love 1897, because I think it really, for me, epitomizes that thing of Dark Shadows of you think it can't get any better, and then that actor you saw before comes back as an entirely new character who's just even, because it's when Catherine comes back as Kitty. Obviously I didn't realise the series did quite so much. So suddenly she comes back, and I'm like, play this brilliant character. I'm like, what's going on now?
Yeah. So then you went back and watched
Rachel, and now she's amazing.
Right. Yeah. And then you went back and watched all of the rest of it.
So then I got stuck. I start to struggle during 1840 because I find 1840s just it's not pretty for a start. Everybody's in quite horrible clothes, whereas 1897 is such a glorious kind of thing. And obviously, when it goes back and it's Jeb Hawkes and everything like that, we're full on into the 70s. You know, Elizabeth is wearing astonishing clothes, let alone anything else. And then it sort of goes to 1840 and everybody's a little bit miserable. Like you've got Chris Pennock, who in the modern stuff is this so hot as Jeb Hawkes and everything like that. And then he's this horrible, Gabriel. Is he Gabriel? Yeah.
Gabriel in the wheelchair. Yeah.
And he's just all a bit miserable. And I sort of struggled. And also, I think there was a bit, and I think I talked about this with Stuart. There was a bit, I remember watching it the first time and I went, have they changed the storylines? And I think it's that Dan Curtis had a bit of a break and came back and went, right, we've got to fix this. So suddenly everybody's got different motives and It's been a while
Yeah.
since I've seen it. Is it Gabriel's wife, the actress Samantha somebody?
Oh, it was Gabriel's wife was Edith, who was Terry Crawford.
No, no, not
Samantha
Edith.
was
That's
Virginia
Mary Ann.
Vestoff. Was Samantha was
Yes,
Quentin's wife. Yeah,
Samantha,
Quentin the First's wife. Yeah,
who suddenly becomes a baddie, and it's like
yeah,
she
yes,
very
yeah,
clearly not
yeah.
meant to have been a baddie up until now. You clearly just changed your mind. What's going on?
Right.
Um, so I'd always stuck at that. So actually, I got as far as 1840, and then so I've done episode 1 through to 1840. I would say 3 or 4 times, and then when I was doing Bloodlust and Bloodline, where we featured clips from the TV series, I had to watch it all again because it was like I've got to find any time that Jonathan Frid speaks to see if there's a line we can use in Bloodline. And then eventually I did get through 1840 and got into 1840 Parallel Time, which actually I found quite fun.
Yeah,
And I found the ending really lovely. I thought it's a really good final episode. It was
yeah.
just 1840. I just something about it just loses it a bit for me.
Right, right, right.
But then straight back
Yeah,
in.
I like 1840, especially the Judah Zachary head of Judah
Oh,
Zachary stuff is
once
just
it gets into all
bananas.
that, I think, yeah, all that stuff is brilliant.
Yeah.
It just feels like there's a lot of the brothers plotting against each other, and
Mm,
it feels like there's another. When you think about 1897, and I think sort of the images of 1897 and
yeah,
the pace and everything that happens, and it's a soap opera. It doesn't need to be this pacey, but that's what it's doing. It's going,
mm,
we're doing a horror episode every day, a 25
yes,
horror
yep,
episode. Here's a new thing. Here's kill off a character. Here's somebody else. And I
yeah.
just found 1840 seems to have a few weeks of family
Yeah.
drama.
Oh, you mentioned, that Stewart discovered Dark Shadows on the Sci-Fi Channel when it aired in the UK, and it always surprises me that Dark Shadows that it didn't make it to the UK, and I know Stewart had mentioned that ABC tried to pitch it to the BBC in the 1970s there, and I suspect Dark Shadows would have been popular in the UK because so it's I mean if you look at early Doctor Who stuff, which I know you've been very involved with Doctor
Yeah,
Who,
yeah.
it isn't a far cry from Dark Shadows, like visually a lot of
Oh,
the
totally.
shot
Yeah.
and video and the serialized nature of it and everything. I think and just these crazy storylines that they would do. I think it would I suspect it would have done well there if it had aired there at the time.
I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so. It's also it obviously it's got flaws. Obviously, there's something,
sure,
but it's genuinely brilliant. It's genuinely brilliant television that you can watch now. Obviously, it's dated, but
sure.
if you watch some of those things like 1897, the speed of the storytelling and the characterization and the performances. I
Mhm.
mean, for the most part, everybody, I think, pretty much everybody in Dark Shadows, it's giving far more of a performance than they need to do. They're
Right.
really being breathing it, living and breathing it, and being so good. And the word iconic is overused, but you get Louis Edmonds and Joan Bennett in a scene together, and you just like look at these two.
Oh,
They haven't got a
dynamite.
clue what they're saying. I don't believe Louis or Joan ever had a clue what was going on in Dark Shadows, but they're absolutely selling it, and they're
Oh,
so up and camp and brilliant.
oh,
It's
and they're on point for every. I mean, just wonderful. Now, how did you? So Stewart was producing for Big Finish and was involved heavily with those, and so then you got involved. So how did it transition from Stewart to you becoming producer on the Big Finish audios?
so as I'm sure I'll probably talk about later. It's so hard to produce Dark Shadows because you're always aware it's a soap opera. We've decided to fit in with the continuity of Return to Collinwood. You're following on from a TV series that that everybody remembers as a soap opera, but actually the 60s, 70s stuff stops being a soap opera.
Mhm.
Carolyn, Roger, Elizabeth, and David basically just get put in a cupboard and brought out again. And it's
Yeah,
what do we want to do with you now? You're not characters. It's basically those 4 actors are brilliant,
yeah,
but they are, Carolyn is rebelling against the family, then she's getting married, then she's getting to the historical centre with her mum. It's like they just do whatever their storyline requires of them, which means it sort of ends in a funny place because obviously in a real soap opera, in a soap opera that hadn't gone into what Dark Shadows becomes, Carolyn would have had children, Carolyn would be married, David would be
sure.
having now, David would probably be aged up and played by a massive hunk, and all of that, he would have moved on and it didn't. And so it's a very tricky thing because also you're dealing with often if you're dealing with writers they don't know Dark Shadows, or you're dealing with a writer you don't know personally but who knows Dark Shadows. There's so much to get your head around. It's a very time consuming job, and of course what Stuart was doing was he was doing it all by himself. And he said to me he was going to quit doing the dramatic readings, the sort of hour-long, usually one-hander, two-hander stories, which I'd written one of. I'd written That's Burning of, and that he was going to carry on doing just the full cast audios. And I sort of said, well, I've never produced before, but I'd done a lot at Big Finish. I'd moved to London because I was working for Big Finish. So I'd gone to lots of recordings and I'd seen Stuart working in them. So I was getting a much broader understanding of everything that isn't just sitting and writing a script. And I spoke to my friend James Goss, who had done more producing stuff because he'd employed me on Doctor Who websites. So I knew he had a lot more. He's basically a lot cleverer. He can do all that sort of stuff. So my phone is beeping. I'll put it on mute.
No worries, no worries.
James didn't really have much knowledge of Dark Shadows. He was aware of it, loved it. I think he'd written one, maybe but he was aware of it, and he loves that sort of television. But I don't think he necessarily would have known that Maggie's father Sam was blinded by Angelique, who was turned into. I don't think he'd know all that, which it's out of my head. And I think we James said, well, did you want to produce it together? And so we went to Stuart. And of course, Stuart's actually very protective of Dark Shadows, quite rightly.
Oh, yeah.
And we really had a big chat. And what we agreed was Stuart would support us during our first year. So we went to him with what we wanted to do. And what we wanted to do was open it up slightly, get more regular Big Finish writers on it, and get some Doctor Who companions in it. See if we could just pitch it to other people, and also sort of while continuing serial elements going on in the background, really push for these are 1 hour long. An episode of Tales Unexpected, an episode of The Twilight Zone. You don't need to know what Dark Shadows is. So our first story is a woman in a sanitarium talks to this painter who at some point is blind, but also he's immortal. What's this twist? Where did that happen? And who is the woman really? And of course, Dark Shadows fans, it's Charles Delaware Tate, and we all know it's Roger Davis as Charles Delaware Tate.
Yeah.
For an audience who don't know Dark Shadows, you don't need to know. You don't need to know whether he's been in the TV series before. It's literally a horror, and that's what we push for. And Stuart helped guide us, and Stuart helped us deal with sounds awful. Stuart helped us with Jim Pearson and Darren Gross and the people he'd been working with. So he really helped ease us into getting to know each other and how we all work together. Just the basic thing of working in 2 different time zones. You're suddenly aware that you need a photo for a cover, and the photos, Doctor Who. If you say I want a photo of Tom Baker as Doctor Who, there's a million. If you say to Jim, have we got any more photos of Nancy as Carolyn? He has to go through these sort of contact sheets, and he sends over little, and it's a much longer process and everything like that. And luckily, we had Stuart doing the covers for that first year at least. And so he really sort of helped bridge us into it, and I was very keen that we followed on from what Stuart had done. So we absolutely little hints of storylines he'd put in Curse of the Pharaoh, for example, which had implied that Carolyn is starting to drink a little bit too much, because Carolyn, the character, has gone, well, I'm just sitting here not doing anything because I'm waiting for Barnabas and Julia to come back. So I don't have a job. I don't have anything. I'm a spoiled little rich girl. I'm not married. I'm a widow at the age of 22 or whatever. And so we then went, well, can we develop that? Because Nancy is such a good actress.
Yeah.
Can we give her an alcoholism storyline in the world of Dark Shadows? And so I was very keen. We followed on from Stuart's work, but also at the same time did what me and James wanted to do, which was a bit more standalone, and maybe a bit bigger at places. We pushed for a bit more, bigger performances at times from actors and stuff. It was great. And then Stuart eventually sort of decided to step away from it. He was so busy doing all this award-winning artwork and stuff, and he had a comic book series and everything like that. So we then took over the sort of full cast range after Kingdom of the Dead.
And you one of those I have right here, the Crimson Pearl, which is fantastic. I really you and James wrote this, and this is really really great for those who may not have listened to it. And it's just kind of this idea of this of this cursed, artifact, evil artifact from Diabolos, or that just throughout the ages,
Yeah.
that keeps finding its way through the Collins family, and you've got to use so many of the cast members in different time periods and even in parallel time, and it was really quite
Ah,
quite fun
thank
to
you.
listen to. It was really cool.
It's a lot of fun.
And then also another one I really liked was The Fall of the House of Trask,
Ah,
which you mentioned,
yeah.
Nancy Barrett. Yeah, she's brilliant, and I love the idea that you know even many years later that Pansy and Charity Trask still share this body
Yeah.
and they interact with each other. It was
And
just,
I think, yeah, that had been set up. James had done some of that, and then yeah, just followed on for. I mean, just brilliant. Because again, Nancy is so good.
yeah,
You could give her anything, and she's just bang, got it. And
yeah,
she hasn't seen Dark Shadows in 50, 60 years, but she knows who Charity is, she knows who Pansy is, and she gets to actually. James did it first. James wrote one for them first, and again, I think that's a bit what we try to do a bit with some of them is actually push the emotional reality of Pansy and Charity a little bit more.
yeah,
Because I mean, that when the other actress who's playing Pansy, when she first arrives, it's one of the funniest bits of television I've ever seen.
yeah. Okay, Fry,
Who is
yeah.
it? Who is it? It's
John Carlin, he's
John
Carl
Carlin,
Collins,
but who's standing? Is it Barnabas and Angelique?
Barnabas and Beth.
Beth, that's it. Yeah, who
Yeah,
yeah. So it's
yeah,
Barnabas and Beth are just standing there, and this woman comes in and does this thing, does this act, and their faces, it's like
yes,
this is
it's
genuinely,
hilarious.
it's so hilarious. But actually, the reality of
Yeah,
the tragedy of Pansy, and that was it. I
yeah,
did a relative for her in London. The tragedy
yeah,
of actually Pansy and the tragedy of Charity, who again Nancy really imbues her with a real humanity in the
yeah,
TV series. That she isn't just the uptight daughter, and actually she gets played with by. Is it Quentin plays with toys with her a bit,
yeah.
and people like that, and she gets, and you sort of go. Actually, the reality of Charity's case is it's horrible, and we really wanted to go what if Charity and Pansy just listened to each other a little bit?
Yeah.
And so Charity allowed herself to be a little bit more human. Pansy allowed herself to be a bit more aware that, not everything's a big show and dance, song and dance.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. No.
And Jerry Lacey too is he's amazing too. He can another one. He can just it's incredible how the actors from Dark Shadows who haven't played these characters in decades can just automatically just slide right back into it. He was fantastic as
He's
well.
so, yeah, lovely.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, I've had him on the podcast, and it was just such a
Yeah.
pleasure chatting with him on the
So
show.
interesting because of he's done writing as well. So I found
Yeah.
we used to put the odd email and, chat about what he was up to and that.
Mhm. Um, what was it like working with some of the like were you primarily working with the UK based actors, or were you actually able to work as well with some of the Dark Shadows cast directly, or?
No, sadly, I've met Catherine a few times. She's come
Mhm.
over a few times, and through her, we got Daisy Tormé, who is Mel Tormé's daughter, and she appeared in Bloodlust. It was Catherine who recommended her. We were looking
Oh,
for an actress to be in it, and Catherine said, "Oh, Daisy Tormé is brilliant." So they're big family friends, and so me and Daisy are really close friends now. We
mhm,
all the time whenever she's over here.
mhm.
But actually, I've never met any of the others. I've had some
Oh,
lovely email exchanges with Jerry and Marie.
oh, she's
Marie
great. She's so
message
nice.
saying, "I'm doing yoga in Central Park," and I'm like, "Marie, I'm getting out of bed. How are you so energetic?" Uh, and sadly, Chris, I do a lot of
Oh,
Chris. He was
yeah.
so funny, and we used to swap a few messages, and we used to poke each other on Facebook. I think he did that to everyone. He was always poking people on Facebook. And that was heartbreaking because I loved him, and
Yeah.
we loved again giving him just a bit extra to do. It's not just the comedy character. Actually, let's get some emotion in, and he could pick it up. He got it so brilliantly, and I really was proud of. And the things I'm proudest of was we gave Lisa Richards a lot to do with Sabrina because
Yes.
she is the ultimate character of I'll just go back in a cupboard and then come out and be what you want me to be in these scenes. And
Yeah.
Lisa's really brilliant. And so we created this Cyrus Longworth. Yes, Cyrus is a parallel time character.
Yeah. Yes.
Uh,
You had the main time band
yeah.
version of
And we put him
Cyrus.
and Sabrina together. And
Yeah.
Chris and Lisa were so brilliant. They were so funny. Instantly, we're just like, you're just part of, we have to find ways to get you into everything because they were so good. So,
Yeah.
yes, I didn't get to work with most of them. But what I did was cast a lot of the people over here. So we
Yeah.
used a lot of people over here,
Yeah.
which was a real challenge. I realized as it went on, the actual we could get a lot of the budgets were so small.
Yeah.
What we tried to do was go, well, let's find an actor who can do 6 different roles across 6 different CDs. So
Mhm.
that actually, so what we did was the two-hander CDs. Eventually, we brought out a year. We brought out 6 that were all set in 1973, and all the characters are all in them. So individual storylines, but everybody. You'd have cameos from each other in each story. So
Yeah.
you'd go, oh, feels like it's part of Dark Shadows, and we're in the living, breathing world of Collinsport. Um, and I'd cast British actors or some American actors we know over here to be to play other parts. So we'd get a new Collinsport Inn owner, and things like that. And me and James Goss and then David Darlington, when he took over from James, were responsible for casting a lot of those people. So we direct them over here, and I had great fun because I got to do impressions of all the American actors. So, so there are versions of the Crimson Pearl, probably that, but there's versions of the full cast series where you could put a version together that's just me reading in all the other, doing my impression of Quentin, my impression
Oh,
of
I
Mac.
love it.
And I'm not an actor, but what I was able to do was, because I love it so much, I can do this is how I think David will say the line type thing, so it
Yeah.
gets the edge up. And actually what we had to do was push a lot of our British actors, not push them, they would get there, but sometimes they'd come in and do TV acting.
Mhm.
And I'd say to them, don't do TV acting, do theatre acting.
Yeah.
I said, when you are edited in with Lara Parker, who is up here, and you're doing a nice, gentle, you're going to sound terrible. And you're not. We've cast you because you're brilliant. And I think sorry, I rambled slightly, but I think one of the biggest compliments we ever got was a friend was listening to Bloodlust, which was our first full cast, and it was a 13-part serial.
Yeah.
And it was a murder mystery. It was who killed this character. And it had as many of the regulars as we could get in, but it also had other characters. The people were living in the police station. So we had a doctor at the hospital. So we had all these other characters who we tried to make feel as if they were of equal importance to Maggie Evans and people like that. And I remember someone messaging me going, I don't know who done it, but I think the killer is this Maggie Evans character. And I thought, oh, we've done well then, because no Dark Shadows fan is going to think Maggie Evans is a cold-blooded murderer.
Right.
The person who doesn't know Dark Shadows is seeing Maggie Evans as the same as, I now can't remember any of the other characters' names, but one of the characters we'd created. Yeah. So I thought we've cast it well and we've directed it well, that they see everybody as Dark Shadows. So I was really happy then. But yeah, it's very sad that I've never got to meet any of the others. I'd love to meet them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, hopefully. Well, there's a big 60th anniversary event that they're planning for the West Coast next summer. So maybe you can make it out for that. That would be pretty cool. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Bloodlust too, because that was quite an undertaking to do a 13-part full cast serial with it was a lot of moving parts for that, and then you did it also again with Bloodline too. But you were also involved in writing Bloodlust. So talk about that. What were some of the challenges involved in putting that together?
I think the big challenge was we were following on from Kingdom of the Dead's cliffhanger, which is. I probably shouldn't.
Well, we talked. I've always put a spoiler tag at the top of the show.
Well,
so,
the Dead End with the reveal. It's brilliant. It's one of my favourite moments. It's David and Carolyn opening a box, and which on audio shouldn't work, but it does work. It's brilliant, and it's camp and dramatic and brilliant. And Kathleen and David, Nancy and Alec Newman, who I bet I've never met, are doing bad dramatic acting, cackling, and that. But when we were doing it, what we didn't want to do was start a series where you're like, you need to know who these people are, that they've been possessed, you need to know what Potofi is and everything like that. So what we want to do is we want to do Victoria Winters again. We want to do a new character arrives in Collinsport, discovers a tower. And we do it very much. We did a lot of research into how soap operas, the first episode of soap operas. So Dark Shadows, we did EastEnders over here. We watched all these first episodes and went, how do they do it? And they usually, it's like, well, there's an event, the arrival of Vicky, and then Vicky meets Maggie. Maggie expositions at her. Well, I think she meets Burke, and then she meets Maggie, and Maggie goes, here's this person, this is this person, this is this person. So we need them. And then we get the people in the house and everything. And that's what we did. We had Melody and Mike Devereaux arrive in Collinsport, and pretty much they meet Maggie, and Maggie does the same thing again. Maggie goes, well, you've got the pub down the road, that's called the Collinsport Inn. No, that's called the Blue Whale, sorry, you're in the Collinsport Inn. There's a blue whale down there. You'll meet some people there. We've also got a hospital. Also, there's a spooky house on a hill. And we rephrased it so it was like the first episode of the thing. And then what was great, what was really funny, I thought, was we then obviously lead to the reveal. So eventually a character goes up to Collinwood. Halfway through the season, somebody goes up to Collinwood and Carolyn or David answers the door and is really snippy with them, and they go away. And people are like, oh, we still don't know who did the murder. And I'm like, nobody, not as far as I know, no Dark Shadows fan posted online going, well, obviously it's the Hand of Patofi. They're possessed by the Hand of Patofi because it's nobody seemed to pick up on it. And then we did reveal, and it really worked. And then what that also did was it got new listeners into it. And it was fun and dramatic, and we did things that like we could kill off characters, and we actually did it a bit like a soap opera in the way that soap operas will do. So we had sort of we got all the characters. Who have we got? And we created new characters in each location as well. And then we did this plotting thing, and we did the same thing for Bloodline, really, where we went right. So Jerry Lacey is playing this Reverend Trask, who is now there, and we started writing it, and we sort of worked out, he'd assist Angelique throughout the season, and that was nice. So we got Jerry and Lara together, and we reimagined Angelique a little bit. She's now a mysterious witch living in a cave. She's speaking French because that's spooky. So we're going, and then we'll get into Angelique, and then once you've got into Angelique, you can go, right, now get Angelique's descent, now get this, now go and watch the TV series. But for now, we want you to go, there's a mysterious. We don't want you going, oh, it's Barnabas's ex-girlfriend. We want you going, there's a mysterious witch living in a cave. How cool is that? And we gave her Jerry Lacey's character as a sort of sidekick. And it just got to the point where we're just like, well, there's nothing to do with him. He's not really doing anything. We love Jerry. We'll easily find something for him to do. He's got his own spin-off series. That's how much we love him. And we sort of went, well, should we just kill him off? It's a murder mystery. So we did. We had this cliffhanger of an end episode where I think two characters, including his, got killed off. Another character got massively, Marie Wallace's character got injured, and everything like that. And it was really sort of fun to do it as a soap opera because it was we could change things as we were writing it. So I wrote to the other writers and just went, I think we could lose Trask halfway through this season. And that's a nice shock for the audience who are going, not going to kill off Jerry Lacey's character. But because we knew we were doing the Tony and Cassandra mysteries and everything like that, we knew that while it would be a shock for the audience, what we're then very quickly going is, there is no way on this earth we're not employing Jerry Lacey as much as we can because he's astonishing. So we're able to do things like that, and then just lead it to this big reveal. And what I wanted was at the end for Collinwood to be lived in, and we got this family in Collinwood. So what we did was created an older version of Amy Jennings, because basically what we had to do was go, there's no children in the end of Dark Shadows. How do we get a next gen? And because we have, Stuart has said, and we agreed that we lead into Jameson Selby's return to Collinwood.
Yeah.
That establishes there's no children. So what can we do? And well, technically Amy's part of the family. So we gave Amy a step-husband with a son from a previous marriage, and we gave her a baby that Angelique then aged up to being a teenager. Yeah. And Angelique Bell, when she ages up, Amy's baby son is Soras. So she says Soras a lot, which is soap opera rapid aging syndrome.
Oh.
So, we were very proud of that joke. But we were just like, let's keep just into chant Soras. And it's actually, soap opera rapid aging.
Oh, okay.
So we could get a great actor playing, technically a member of the Collins family. And of course, then we realised, well, we've got this boy who's Amy Jennings' son. He'd be a werewolf.
Right.
So suddenly we've got a young werewolf, and suddenly he then has a relationship with Quentin.
Right.
Because Quentin's suddenly now got a young male friend again, which is Quentin. I love in the original series Quentin's love for Jameson, isn't it? It's his love for Jameson. It's so pure because Quentin has killed people. Quentin is horrible in many ways, but he loves Jameson. And it was great to sort of go, let's put that back in there. Give Quentin a protege, a thing that he can mentor. So Quentin isn't just, I want women. It's that. So we were able to do that, and we filled up Collinwood again. And I was really happy with that. I was really pleased that we managed to sort of fill up the house, give it a family, ready to then destroy again in Bloodline.
Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah. And then when it went into Bloodline, there were some interesting things there too, because Andrew Collins had been Barnabas from the start of the audio dramas, and he did a great job. But then like you mentioned earlier, took some audio clips from the
Yeah,
original show and brought back the Jonathan Frid, Barnabas, and Grayson Hall too as Julia, because you had Julie Newmar playing Julia in that, which is
I know.
wild. It was a really interesting,
That's Jim Pearson.
iconic, another
Yeah,
iconic '60s actress.
yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. And you also had, like, you actually had in one of the audio dramas. Mitch Ryan
Mm.
was in with Catherine Lee Scott, but um, he wasn't in Bloodline. But you had an actor who sounded remarkably like Mitchell Ryan.
Well, my whole thing has been, even though I know the America, it's a bigger thing over in America. We do it over here, but I'm not a huge fan of recasting, and I think part of it because, sort of as I said earlier on, you know, Elizabeth is Joan Bennett. Joan Bennett is
Yeah.
Elizabeth.
Yep.
Because the character of Elizabeth can be written on a postage stamp. She's a great character at the beginning. She's got this backstory. It's fascinating and everything like that. That then gets forgotten. I mean, we tackle some of it later on, but I don't want someone doing an impression of Joan Bennett because nobody can be Joan Bennett. So I really, where possible, didn't want recast. We recast Amy because we went it's an older character, and sadly Denise's voice had aged quite a lot.
Yeah.
But so we had to get Denise in playing this brilliant character who appeared in two audios, who is so much fun. I was so pleased to work with her.
She was great. Yeah.
She was great. But we need that. So I really didn't want to recast people. Now, obviously, Stuart, obviously, brilliantly gone. Barnabas is a character you can recast in a story in story reason. So Barnabas is, Andrew Collins is Barnabas, but he's actually Barnabas in another body.
Mm-hmm.
He's not, I'm doing Jonathan Frid. So he doesn't do an impression of Jonathan Frid or anything like that. And I wonder sometimes if maybe it's because I went into it through 1897. I adore Barnabas. I adore Jonathan Frid, but he's not for me necessarily the heart of the show in the way that he might be for a lot of people who watch the show thing. I mean, his arrival in the 60s episodes is some of the best television, I think. Those episodes, and when he's so horrifically latching onto Maggie, and it's so horrible, and it's so I just want to rewatch it all now. I might not go out tonight. Rewatch all of that. It's so good, but for me, Barnabas isn't the heart of the show. The Collins family is, and a bit like with Dickens and Pearl, all of the family and all the relations, everything like that. To me, that is the heart of the show. So when we started planning Bloodline, I said, well, look, one of the things I want to do at some point, because we're always gradually going, how can we get one step closer to return to Collinwood without it feeling like we're moving pieces into place? And I said, well, one thing is we could put Barnabas back in his body, because I don't quite know how many more miniseries we'll be doing. Yeah. But also, I think we've established enough of a world around it that if we did a 13-part season without Barnabas in it, I don't think there's going to be many people going, it's not Dark Shadows because it hasn't got Barnabas in it. And once we knew we were doing that, and once we knew also what we were doing was whereas Bloodlust had been a story about a mystery, Bloodline, we said, was a mystery about the story. So it's only at the end of episode 6 that you really start to go, oh, I'm really getting what's happening. And nobody picked up on the line that basically characters were disappearing because it was such a big cast. So, and it was only when he gets to the wedding and suddenly a character disappears and everybody goes, oh, who's David Collins? Who are you marrying? And then we were able to do all the fun stuff of time travel and everything like that. But what we needed then was it needed to be someone big behind it. It needed to be a character who was big. And so we looked at, I don't know, I actually can't remember who actually is, but what we looked at was Barnabas's early victims. Because again, there's a tendency to, you can sort of romanticize Barnabas to an extent. And actually, no, he's a monster.
A lot of fans do that. I always mention that. They wear rose-colored glasses a lot of times. I love Barnabas, but he's multifaceted. They're good.
Multifaceted. That's why we love him.
He does terrible things too.
Yeah, and again, I think so much of it is Jonathan's performance.
Yeah. Because
Jonathan, I don't know, people talk about fancying Jonathan as Barnabas back in the day, and I'm like, he's not Quentin. I mean, David Selby arrives, and David Selby is a heartthrob. To me, Jonathan isn't particularly a heartthrob. He's this brilliant actor, but also because he's got this shyness to him that I think comes from Jonathan. Is that while Barnabas is doing this terrible stuff, he's doing it really quietly. And he never is like, wow, I'm a vampire, which means I think the writers pick up on that in the series and go, well, can we keep him? Can we, is there a way to, because he's such good. And then, and then you get Angelique, and he's like, oh, poor Angelique. No, not poor Angelique. She kills a girl.
Yeah, same. Yes, exactly. She's awful too. But you also, it's like with Jonathan, there's like glimmers of conscience or sympathy. You feel some sympathy, but then they also do terrible things. When Angelique does, she's insane. She does terrible things,
They're
but they're
monsters.
great. They're so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and then they're great. And the interesting thing is to explore that
Yeah.
and to go, well, can they be redeemed? Can they do that? Because you kind of go, I mean, in my head, there's always, so I've just, yeah, so Julia, we then decided we need someone big. So we then, well, let's bring back Julia.
Yeah.
And at the end of the story, but obviously she'll have to come back in a different body because I'm not having anybody doing an impression of Grayson Hall.
Mhm.
Nobody is Grayson Hall. What a queen. The end of the season, we'll use voice tape, we use things. And we had a great thing, it was because we had a character, Amy's son is named Chris, or I don't can't remember. It's been a while. Amy's son, we named him after a character, one of her brothers. Who are the brothers? Chris and
Tom.
Tom. We named him Tom. That's it. So we found a clip of Barnabas or Julia talking to Tom. So it meant we actually have Jonathan Frid or Grayson Hall from 50, 60 talking to this actor. Now, God, well, come in, Tom. And it's like, obviously, I loved all that. But my whole thing with Dark Shadows was Dark Shadows would be solved if they all sat in a room and just talked it through. And that's the problem, is they don't just sit down and talk it through and go, look, I'm really sorry I killed your sister Barnabas, but can we move on? If they just did that, everything would be fine. And so I was always looking for ways to go, can we push our characters towards that? Can we push our characters towards just going, let's be grown-ups? And because they're not, that's the thing, they're all just teenagers. Mm-hmm. And obviously Maggie is the center of that. Maggie is the one who goes, she would be. And so we always do that, and we had to find ways to push them apart. And so Bloodline was about, the new Barnabas that is cozy Uncle Barnabas. Mm-hmm. That at the end of the season, he brutally murders this young couple because of the bloodlust, the creature inhabiting Julia, who's from his past and everything like that. So because that person has never let go of the past, that takes Barnabas back to what he used to be like. That means a new young couple are brutally murdered, who we just had in random scenes throughout the season, where people are like, who are these people talking? This young couple who just appear in random scenes. And we put it, because I went, it's very Netflixy. I wanted to do it Netflixy. So Cyrus and Sabrina have one scene in episode 2 and then arrive in episode 5, but they just have this majorly brilliantly iconic scene where they stop a diner being robbed, and then it's like, right, let's get to Collinsport, and then they come back. So I wanted to do that, really play around with it and have the joy of it, and that's what we did. And so we took Barnabas. He's not cuddly Uncle Barnabas, and he is. And we really pushed it at the beginning. I think we have a character call him Uncle Barney, and like that. We really, oh, you're back, Barnabas, and this is Julia. Oh, lovely, and then we take him right back to it, and then somebody forgives somebody, and that was the end of Bloodline. Is somebody actually forgives somebody, and because they forgive them, Barnabas and Julia are put back in their real bodies and can go off and travel. And that was what I wanted to do. So I think it's very easy to do tragedy and darkness with Dark Shadows. I think my version of Dark Shadows has always been, can we find redemption for characters? One of the first things I did was there's a story called Final Judgment, which is again, that might be why I got into Dark Shadow. So Final Judgment is, in hell, the ghost of Gisette Dupre.
Oh, yes. I remember that one.
Ghost of Gisette Dupre sort of sues the ghost of Angelique. And Angelique wins because Angelique tricks her. And actually, the writer of that, Debbie, is very pro-Angelique. And I was like, well, all right, Gisette has privilege and everything like that, but she doesn't do anything. She's not as kind and generous as she should be. She doesn't deserve that. So I commissioned Debbie to write a story that actually rescued Gisette from that. And not only rescues her, but rescues her from, actually rescues somebody else. So she rescues this person who's just in this story to take her to death, to take her to hell, basically, through purgatory. And then at the end, she gets a chance to escape. And what we see Natalie and people like that. So it was again of going, actually, can we give the characters some hope, because otherwise it's just relentlessly grim, and it's very easy to do monsters, and it's not so easy to go, well, what if monsters forgave each other and moved on? Sorry, I rambled on there.
No, that was great. No, thank you for sharing all of that. I want to ask you, because I know everybody who's been listening to this has been saying, ask him about the future of Big Finish. So I know you can't say much about the future of Dark Shadows at Big Finish, but is there anything you can say to fans about Dark Shadows at Big Finish?
I mean, there isn't much I can say. I'm basically freelance. I don't work for Big Finish. I'm employed on a freelance basis to work for them. We have written more scripts, but there were problems, there have been delays. So we're waiting to sort that out. I'm going to contact Big Finish again next year. Sadly, obviously, we've lost Lara and Chris and Mitch. Yeah. We've lost a few people. Like I say, the issue of Dark Shadows, it's so much harder, I think, than probably anything else at Big Finish to do. Because for it to continue, there's got to be new characters. For those new characters, there's got to be new actors. Those actors have to be cast where we can do them. It's a soap opera, so I want to always be pushing characters forward, but at the same time, you want standalone stories. So it's so unlike anything else Big Finish ever does. I mean, I'm so proud of what we have done. What I hope there's more. I don't think Dark Shadows will ever die. There was talk of the new TV series, wasn't there? And it's timeless. There will be. I've got a vague semblance of a TV career. I've done a bit. I've done some kids' TV over the years. I've done quite a bit. One day I will sell something that will be absolutely brilliant, and I'll be rich and famous, and then I will buy the Dark Shadows license,
yes.
and I will bring it back, and we'll have the UK branch and the American branch.
Wonderful.
Because it has to come back. It's such a brilliant format. It has to come back. So I really hope we do more at Big Finish, but I don't know what format that would be. Because the work that goes into it compared, I suspect, to the comparative smaller number of sales it probably gets to their Doctor Who releases. But while I hope there is more, what I would be very happy is if we did end it, is if we ended it with a box set about Maggie and Quentin far in the future being happily married. Where's that come from? And it's like brilliant. And also we ended with Barnabas and Julia being put back in their real bodies and saying goodbye to our new characters and heading off. And I just thought, we've actually ended it on a really nice note, if that's where it ends. But I really hope it doesn't end there. We've got things up here that are, need exploring.
Sure.
Into Victoria Winters.
I was about to mention Victoria Winters. Yeah, that was kind of the one big one you never got to.
I know what happened to Victoria Winters in our version of Dark Shadow.
Did you try to get Alexandra to come back?
I did. At first, I think she had zero interest, and then I think there was a period where she would possibly be interested. I suspect, as it is, I think with many actors of that sort of thing, is it going to be fun for them to do?
Yeah.
She's got no, I imagine I don't know Alexandra at all. I've seen about 2 interviews with her. I don't suspect she's got any great, thrill in life I must finish off the story of Victoria Winters. He said to her, right, who are your favourite actors to work with? Was it Catherine? Right, well, if we said you've got 3 days in the studio with Catherine and Nancy, which would mean getting Nancy over from New York because she's in again, that's the logistics of it. Nancy's in New York, everybody else is in LA. If we could do that, would you do it then? But it's all, it's a
I bet that's who I bet if you had her with Catherine and Nancy, I bet she probably would do it. I mean, because she's friends with, I know she's friends with Catherine. I think she still is friends with Nancy too.
She did do the Christmas Carol thing, didn't she?
Yes, they did. Yes, she did. Yeah, she was great in that too. Was that?
Was it during lockdown or was it later? Oh, good to see everybody. It was so
I think it was after a lot. The Halloween thing they did was the Halloween Q&A was during lockdown. I think the Christmas Carol was after that, or toward the end of that. Yeah. But that was really cool. There's one. I'm going to let you go in just a minute. There's a Doctor Who actor whose name escapes me now, who I believe is a big Dark Shadows fan too, and has a Dark Shadows collection. Matthew Waterhouse, yes.
So, Matthew, again, in the way that actors don't always want to come back, Matthew played a companion of Doctor Who called Adric, and he never wanted to come back. He never came. He refused to come back to Big Finish. Just had no interest in doing it. He's a great writer, he's a brilliant writer, and now we're really good friends. So every year I go on a writers' retreat. We go for a week away, a little group of us, including me, Matthew Waterhouse, and Louise Jameson, who we got playing Pansy Faye's cousin. So I have a little Dark Shadows reunion every year with those two. But Matthew had zero interest in ever coming back to Big Finish, ever coming to Big Finish to reprise his role as Doctor Who from Doctor Who. And I can't remember how we found out, but we found out he was a Dark Shadows fan. I think he had a blog. And then I can't remember who did. Someone messaged him and just went, do you think you'd appear in a Dark Shadows audio with? And we went with David Selby. And he was like, absolutely yes. So Simon Guerrier wrote this story for us called The Creeping Fog, and it's brilliant. And again, it's one of those, we did this run of Quentin stories where you don't need to know anything. He's this immortal who walks through time. That's all you need to know. Don't need to know he used to be a werewolf or anything like that. And we did this story called The Creeping Fog. It's all in the London Museum, fog outside, spooky, proper little spooky audio drama, with Matthew playing John Cunningham, who's the mild-mannered janitor of the museum, who, guess what, turns out to be the baddie all along. And of course, we had no idea whether Matthew would be any good. You know, he hasn't really done much acting since Doctor Who. He's done a lot of theatre stuff, which obviously I haven't seen. So we were a bit like, it doesn't matter. It's a big coup for us as the forgotten little brother range at Big Finish, for us to go, we got Matthew Waterhouse back. Did you not? So we got him in, and he's brilliant. So immediately we're like, what? How? What do we do now? And so he became Amy's husband, because we went, well, what did he do in Dark Shadows? Well, they go, let's create a family. So we created the Cunningham family. So he now plays his own ancestor, Andrew Cunningham, in the 1970s, married to Amy, and he's playing a real monster in that. Andrew's horrible and doesn't last too long, and then he comes back again, and he comes back in Parallel Time, and we do, you know, and it was just like, he's so brilliant, and he's very funny. He's a very funny man, because he'll always say, well, of course I saved Dark Shadows. You were all without me, and you got me on board, and suddenly it's a big success. And he's brilliant, and he is brilliant because obviously, because it's not such a big thing over here, there's not many people you can geek out about Dark Shadows with. Whereas if Matthew, you can, you know, I can sit there with him and go, oh, Panty Faye,
yeah. At some point, I'll have to invite him onto the podcast.
Oh, he would love it.
Geek out on Terror at Collinwood, because I heard he even has like a collection of stuff and everything.
He's got everything. Yeah, I mean, he is absolutely a proper fanboy of Dark Shadows. You know, and genuinely, you know, has it all. Loves it. Knows exactly what he's doing, and again knows how to act Dark Shadows.
That's great.
He came in, and admittedly, I think he did. He recorded with David, so I think he was just fanboying over David Selby. He was just like, "Oh, I'm with David Selby," but he knew how to pitch it as, I'm not just a mild-mannered janitor. I've got to be absolutely a tremulous-voiced mild-mannered janitor. And then when I become evil, I'm like,
perfect.
I love him bits. He's so funny, and yeah, one of those people who just instantly just went, we've got him in all of it, get him back whenever we can, so we keep killing him off and then find a way to bring him back because we just love him. But that's again, that's just something about Dark Shadows. We created this character for Bloodlust, the teenage daughter of the sheriff, whose name escapes me, but she's played by this actress Alex Donaghy. She plays, basically, though, the character was written deliberately annoying. Again, we're pitching high, and we want the characters to be recognizable because she's got to be, you know, this English 20-something actress who's never seen Dark Shadows has got to be equal to Maggie Evans and David Collins and people like that. But then Alex gave, so my plan has always been, she gets killed off. Whatever we do after Bloodlust, she gets killed. Because, oh my God, she's so perky and it's an adventure and da-da-da. But what we did was we cast this actress, Alex Donaghy, who makes her brilliant. And so suddenly it was like, no, Jackie, that's it. Jackie is now the main character. You know, Jackie is in it all the way through. And I think what we got was, we realized with Dark Shadows is the great actors are the ones, they are making the characters their own. And you see that in the TV series, you know. Louis Edmonds is meant to be this evil dad who doesn't care about his son and plays it so well. But because Louis Edmonds clearly isn't that, because he's clearly this wonderful...
he's so charming. He's
charming and glorious man. You can see they're just like, we can't keep him like, you know, and then that's what's interesting is have these actors who play against sometimes what the character is. And I think that's what I've really enjoyed. The one big thing I'd take away from it, I've just really enjoyed casting people who are so dissimilar to the characters, because that's the joy there of, you know, you meet Catherine Lee Scott and she's so much smarter than Maggie Evans. She's so smart.
Oh, she's brilliant. She's absolutely sharp as a tack. I mean, really,
you would not get on the wrong side of Catherine Lee Scott. She is a brilliant mind.
Yes.
And, hey, hello, I'm Maggie Evans, and I'm just really sweet and innocent. Oh,
Well, Joe, I want to thank you for taking the time today
Ah,
to
thank you.
chat with me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to bring you on
Oh,
for a while, and I really appreciate you taking the time. So thank you very
well,
much. And I look forward to seeing and hearing your future work, not only in Dark Shadows, but also in Doctor Who and any other wonderful projects that you're involved with. So we'll keep an eye out for what you're doing.
okay.
Is there anything you do have coming out that you
There's
can
a
talk about?
kids TV show coming out over here next month, called Gifted, which I've wrote 1.5 episodes of,
Cool.
which has been being written for about 5 years.
Mm.
It's been waiting a long time for Dark Shadows. I've been working a long time on writing one episode of this kid series. This is about kids with superhero powers. So, originally the kids that presumably would have been cast in it are now in their teens. So that's and then the main thing I'm doing at the moment is trying to get some theatre, which again I love. And to me, Dark Shadows is very theatrical.
Oh,
It's all
yes. Yeah.
my love of that world of the Dark Shadows thing and theatre and dark psychological supernatural stuff. So that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, and hopefully maybe
Yeah.
one more Dark Shadows. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed for sure. So, folks, if I hear anything, I will definitely announce it here on Terror
Mm.
at Collinwood. And thank you again, Joe, for joining me. It has been an absolute pleasure. And folks, thank you for listening. And please do rate the podcast. Like the podcast on YouTube if you're watching the video version. Subscribe to the channel. That does help the podcast to grow and reach more Dark Shadows fans. Spread it like the dream curse. Thank you for listening. And for as long as they lived, the Dark Shadows never truly vanished, for there will always be Terror at Collinwood. Terror at Collinwood is a Penny Dreadful production.